So I guess that helped us stay the course. Alright, it is an utterly nondescript Wednesday afternoon. The type of afternoon that would completely fade from memory unless one made an active effort to preserve it. As has become routine on Wednesdays, you are sitting on the couch in Dr. Melville's office. To your mild surprise, she begins the session by breaking her characteristic therapist's silence and begins speaking up right away. I wanted to start by saying I think it is great that you decided to come to see me. It's an incredibly important first step, she begins. I wanted to take some time today to talk to you about the possibility of supplementing or substituting your treatment with medication. The mention of medication makes your ears perk up and you feel your heart rate increasing. She continues. Many people find adding a pharmacological element to their treatment to be very helpful, and some even prefer to take drugs, completely eliminating their need to visit a therapist at all, providing you rely on your support network and are still reaching out to people. I would prefer if we kept talking, should you choose to start medication, so that I can monitor your progress and adjust as needed, but the choice is ultimately yours. I just wanted to run the option by you to gauge your thoughts, what your thoughts on the matter might be. Alright, we've got a lot to think about. What are we going to do? We can accept a prescription as an augment. We can do drugs instead. We can stick with just the therapy, or we can bail out. I am leery of chemical supplementation, but if we get worse, we'll try it. The mere mention of medication makes you stiffen uneasily. It was hard enough for you to work up the nerve to start coming to therapy, but the thought of introducing into the equation drugs that literally alter the chemicals in your brain totally freaks you out. You may feel somewhat honor-bound to Amanda to keep up with your therapy, but you draw the line at ingesting any sort of chemical that you can't buy at a liquor store. That's also not the best policy, and I'm not condemning medication outright, just as a person. I'll just add that right here. It works for some people. Other people have issues. It's something that if you want to explore, you want to be careful about it, but anyway, for the game's sake, we're going to avoid it. Alright. Moderately depressed, good therapy. Okay. It's a Wednesday evening, and you're visiting at your parents' house for a holiday. It's one of the handful of times during the year you drive out to visit your old hometown, and you've seen random people you had gone to school with around town. Whenever bumping into them, the usual short versions of what you've been doing since graduating are exchanged. You've gone through a few of these today, and have been very aware of how much you feel like you haven't accomplished. When you were in high school, you had much larger plans, and you feel like you failed to manifest most of them. Even if you had managed to, you've largely lost interest in what you thought you wanted to do growing up. Now, you're not really sure what you want to do, and you felt like you're lacking the ambition or drive to figure it out. Everyone you've caught up with seems much happier than you, like they've got their lives all figured out, and you've been kind of feeling like a failure by comparison. Your brother Malcolm arrives with his wife in tow shortly before you all sit down to dinner. He's been traveling for his job lately, and you haven't seen him since the day he picked you up from the dentist. Your parents haven't seen him since before then. During dinner, they all catch up, and Malcolm talks about the amazing things he's done on the road. Your mother turns to you and asks what you've been up to since you've seen them last. Oh, same old, you say. Nothing really new going on. Your mother makes a fake face. Oh, nothing new? How long are you planning to stay in that job of yours? What do you say? Okay, we can lie and tell them what they want to hear. We can bail out to the bathroom, or we can admit that we don't know what we want to do. I don't know what I want to do. Actually, you start sheepishly, I'm not really sure what I want to do right now. Your mom puts down her fork. So what, you're planning on living the way you do for the rest of your life? How could you afford a house on that paycheck? What about kids? Your father interrupts, lightly placing his hand over your mother's. It's okay, Linda. Let the kids be what they are. There's nothing wrong with not knowing what you want to do in your 20s. I didn't get into construction until I was nearly 40. Your mother looks across the table at you, unsatisfied with her husband's reasoning. I don't think it's normal for someone at that age to not have a path. You need to think hard about it, or you'll never make anything of yourself. Mom, come on, Malcolm interjects. This emotionally exhausts you. You want to tell her that you are thinking hard, and that not knowing what you're doing with yourself bothers you more than it could ever bother her. That it sometimes feels like you're lost in the woods, and that if you were to drop dead in your apartment, the world wouldn't notice. You want to make her understand that more often than not, You feel like an alien, like there isn't anywhere in this world that feels like a place where you belong, and that you have no idea how to fix it or what to do. You wish you could find the words so she would understand that being looked down on for this kills you and drives home the feeling of being a total outsider. Instead, you get very quiet for the rest of the meal while your mind goes numb. Everything inside you feels exhausted. Alright, we're still moderately depressed, and in therapy, moderate results. Okay. It's a rainy night. You're hurrying through the rain to Alex's apartment at her behest. Though your pace is quick, the rain is steadily soaking up your pant legs as you traverse the town, and is darkening your already poor mood. The call came while you were at home after a day of dealing with abnormally frustrating people. You'd spent the afternoon trying to unwind and get some work on your project done. Alex called, interrupted one of your try to make progress, get frustrated at not making progress, have a harder time making progress due to frustration, repeat loops, and haven't fully shaken off the feelings of being annoyed with yourself from it yet. You knock on her door, and on the third knock you hear her voice call from further in the apartment to come on in. As you cross the threshold, dripping rainwater all the way, you notice that the lights are turned down very low in the apartment. You squint to navigate as you clutch onto your damp umbrella but end up hitting your shin on a side table, mumbling a profanity under your breath. You barely make out Alex emerging from the hallway, clad in what looks to be a robe with the bare skin of her legs peering out underneath. "Why don't you come in and warm up?" she asks in her designated, slightly cheesy, sexy voice. After a beat of silence, she states more naturally, "My roommates are out of town this weekend, so I thought it might be nice to have a little fun while they're away." You appreciate her affection, but you're too wrapped up in your own negative feedback loops to be in the mood right now. What do? Let's try to unwind with her. You can also suggest something else or tell her you're not in the mood, but let's try to unwind first. You already put in this much effort. You look at her standing, barely lit, and notice there's a few candles scattered around the apartment. It occurs to you that she has tried to make this night special for the two of you. Even though you have a tight knot of antisocial frustration in your stomach, seeing how much she cares about you makes you want to try to melt it away so you can show her how much you care that she's gone through all this trouble. However, you desperately need to shift gears before that's even possible. "You look amazing. Let's have a drink together," you suggest, hoping that this will give you the push you need to get in the mood. You go into the kitchen and pour the two of you drinks, trying to focus on letting go of your bad mood. You sit down on the couch next to her, and she cuddles up to you instantly. "What should we toast to?" she asks as she takes her drink. You think for a moment, passing up the cheesy to us option. You say what's on your mind, letting go of your bad day. "To tonight." The two of you cheers, and you ask about her day. Conversation turns flirtatious, and the two of you find yourselves in the bedroom shortly after. Alright, still moderately depressed, but that worked out. It's an early winter evening, and even though it's not particularly late, the time of year has lent the sky an almost prematurely darkened cast. Day after day, just like today, you trudge home from a job you have increasingly come to hate. On this day, your job misery seems to have reached critical mass, and not even shedding your rain-laden and uncomfortable work clothes helps you unwind from your workday. You collapse into your couch, blank and numb. While your job always seemed to be just an unpleasant reality of existence, it was a position you sort of fell into unexpectedly, never intending to work there long term, and it's getting harder and harder to keep it up. While it's certainly not your dream job, you've always just sort of stuck it out of necessity before, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to do that. Though you couldn't even begin to imagine what else you could do, you find yourself face to face with a question you just can't ignore. Is your complacency worth the price of this level of misery? What do? Try and at least be productive by focusing your efforts on your project tonight, aimlessly look through classifieds for another job, or turn on the TV and let your mind go blank. I'm gonna pour into the project. You sit down at your computer to blow off some steam, but are surprised to find your thoughts are drifting to your long-neglected project. You talk yourself into opening it up and taking a look for the first time in what must be weeks. For whatever reason, your anger that you've been feeling towards your day job seems to have converted to pure passion as you begin to be overflowing with ideas tonight. It's as if you've got a buildup of these ideas that just haven't gotten out, and now you're in the zone. While you don't get an unnatural amount of work done, you do work for a solid couple of hours, and it feels really great. What's more, you share some stuff across your social media networks, and you receive quite a bit of positive feedback, which makes you feel great. That's great. Everything's great. It's a lot of great. When you go to bed that night, You tell yourself that your job may suck, but at least you've got something you really care about that you can put effort into and feel really good about yourself. In fact, as you're falling asleep, you can barely even remember your workday. Alright, this is totally new. And the fuzz is gone. Or no, it's there. It's just a lot less staticky. Like you'll notice, there is static behind the first 2 blocks, but it's not as severe as the non-medication. You are definitely still depressed, but things are getting better. Whatever you're doing seems to be working. You really feel like you're taking steps to affect positive change in your life. You now seem to enjoy seeing your therapist. Between giving you a chance to talk things out and the CBT techniques she shares with you, you find your sessions extremely helpful. It's a little past 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night. You're at your computer, frustration levels peaked, rubbing your eyes and sighing heavily. You're working on a project from your job that has you stretched to wit's end, trying to meet a looming deadline, and as it lurks closer and closer, you are seriously doubting your ability to get it done. You've dragged your feet a little at work due to your complete lack of energy lately, in spite of wanting to do a good job. You find yourself unable to push past it and feel horribly useless for it. You slide your hands off your face to look at your screen as it beeps at you. Hey, are you there? I really need to talk to someone about something. You feel like you're getting nowhere with your current task, and could probably use a break. However, you know that you have a history of getting distracted and losing motivation to pick something back up again afterward. Still the same status. This guy listened to us, so I'm gonna pay the favor back. You're feeling like you've hit a brick wall with your task, so why not take a break and help out a friend? Hey, what's up? Oh good, you're there. I just found out I got cheated on. I don't know what to do. Oh no, that sucks. The two of you talk for a long time, and you lend a shoulder to your friend. You give him space to rant, to cry, and most importantly, to be able to voice his inner turmoil. You give him your full attention and talk him through what his options are for what he does next. You keep him from doing something rash, and the two of you decide it's best for him to sleep on it before doing anything. Exhausted, he departs for bed and thanks you for being there to talk with him. As you close the IM window, you feel horribly sorry for your friend, but happy that you were able to help. It serves as a tangible reminder that you're capable of being useful to someone instead of solely being a mess that needs everyone's help. You boot up your work project and find that you're suddenly able to get some solid progress on it done that night. You're doing well. You may still have your bad days, but now you have effective ways to deal with them, and you don't get nearly as low as you used to, or for as long. You still visit your therapist, and even she has remarked on how much more alive you seem lately. That font is throwing me. Still not taking medication, but I think we're okay. It's yet another sleepless Thursday night. You're at Alex's apartment, wide awake in bed as she's sleeping peacefully beside you. She fell asleep hours ago, and you've been laying there unable to shut your brain up long enough to fall asleep. You've added the feelings of insecurity about your relationship to the rest of the noise in your head keeping you up tonight. It was kind of a tense night between the two of you. You arrived after a stressful day at work, and as you made dinner together, you barely said a word. You were stuck in your own head and had a hard time really being present with her as your thoughts turned to all of the ways you feel like you're deficient at being a good person and beating yourself up mentally for each one. She told you she could tell you were in one of your moods and said that she wouldn't push you, but missed talking to you as the two of you sat on the couch together. You wanted to tell her how much you love her, but you couldn't make the words come out right and ended up sounding defensive instead. As you lay there next to her now, you trace your fingers across her arm, just lightly enough not to wake her. You still haven't explained your depression to her, or how you've started seeing a therapist, and it's starting to feel more and more like a secret you're keeping instead of something she simply doesn't know about you yet. It's becoming more and more apparent that it's impacting your relationship with her, and you feel guilty about this. However, you're also terrified that if she knew exactly how fucked up you are, that she would leave you. You're already worried that she's only with you because she doesn't realize how terrible of a person you are yet, and you're afraid that this would be the final thing to expose you. She stirs in her sleep and squints as she opens her eyes. With the confusion that comes with waking up, she asks if you're awake and then if everything is okay. At this point, we're doing well enough that we should tell her. You feel like a jerk for accidentally waking her up, but you're afraid if you put this off any longer that you won't find the strength to tell her everything later. No, actually. Everything isn't okay. Can I tell you something? Something important? Alex sits up, rubbing the sleep out of her eyes. For the rest of the night, you lay side by side, holding hands, as you tell her everything. You tell her how it's been more than just feeling sad sometimes, how you feel trapped by your own mind sometimes, how sometimes you feel nothing at all, and how you can't shake it off. You tell her how you've started going to therapy, how you feel embarrassed about it, and how it's working out for you. She listens the entire time, occasionally asking questions about how this or that works, or asking you to explain something further. She squeezes your hand and tells you she understands and that she's sad you didn't tell her sooner. After laying silent for a moment, the weight of what you did hits you. You desperately want her to say something, to tell you how she's feeling about all this, but you're too afraid of what the answer would be to ask. You start convincing yourself that now that she knows everything, she's going to leave. There's no way someone could deal with how you really are. So how can I help? What do you need me to do? She asks. You think for a second, and the answer you come up with fills you with despair. I honestly don't know. I wish I knew how to fix this, but I don't know that you can do anything. I think it's just something I have to live with. She looks at you with sad eyes before kissing you on the forehead. Then I'll live with it with you. I don't know how you could possibly love me. She just rolls over and wraps her arms around your neck, settling her head on top of yours. You don't need to. Just know that I do. And we're still doing pretty well. It's Friday night, and you are laying across your bed feeling pathetic. As you were leaving work tonight, a group of coworkers asked if you could join them for drinks. Feeling antisocial and put on the spot, you declined. You have a habit of doing this. You're often so convinced that you are weird and terrible, and that any invitation to hang out will end in disappointment for those inviting you. You never feel like you know how to act in group outings, and you feel like a total creep, since it seems to come so naturally to anyone who isn't you. You find yourself petrified of breaking some unknown social rule that you don't often go out. Now, however, you find yourself alone at home. Your brain has begun telling you how pathetic and sad you are for being unable to just be a normal person and go out with nice people. You can't figure out why you can't just go out and meet people and enjoy yourself. At the same time, you're also feeling like no one would possibly want you to hang out if they really knew you, because you're dull and weird anyway. You try your typical strategy and boot up Netflix to distract yourself from these feelings, but frustration with yourself builds, and you realize you have to do something else with your night. Anything else to take your mind off how awful and lonely you feel right now. Our options are attic, Alex, drink, or play with the cat. Well, after the last thing with Alex, let's call her. You dial Alex's phone number, figuring that if you could spend some time with her instead of being cooped up in your apartment alone, you might feel less isolated. Her phone rings a handful of times before going to voicemail. You know it's not uncommon for her to be out with friends at this hour. You leave a voicemail, but end up calling again 15 minutes later. Still no response. You imagine Alex out with her friends, much like you would be tonight if you weren't so horrible at socializing. Your mind wanders and you start to wonder who she's with, and if she might meet someone tonight she'd rather be with. Someone who's able to go to parties like this with her instead of sitting at home feeling sorry for themselves. Why didn't she invite you? Have you just said no one too many times? How many other Fridays have you unknowingly missed? You begin to think that maybe it would be better if she met someone tonight. She's a wonderful woman, and you feel like a constant joy kill on nights like this. Why can't you just be normal? The next morning, Alex calls you back. She tells you that she left her phone in class and spent a boring night in her apartment, too. You feel horribly embarrassed about how emotional you'd gotten over mistaken assumptions the night before. But we're still doing well, still have your bad days, and the therapist is good with me.